In the previous lesson, we created this person object, and that was a way for us to learn how we could represent data using vanilla JavaScript. But now I want to show you how we could do this with Backbone. Well, let's get rid of all of this. I'm going to comment it out for now. And then we will say var person equals, and now we're going to create a Backbone model. And the way that we can tell Backbone that we want to take advantage of everything that it offers is we're going to extend it. So I will say Backbone model extend. And you know what? Why don't we take this and put it at the top just so I'm not running off the page. So let's leave it like that and come back to Chrome. And once again, we're going to try it. Var person equals a new person. So notice we're interacting with it in the same way. But now if I run person, you'll see we get this new Backbone object. And that's because we extended it. And now we have access to all of these cool things. We can access any attributes that are stored on it. We still have the proto. So if we come down, we have lots of stuff down here. You can see we have this changed object. Well, that's interesting. That must be how we can determine if the object has been changed or modified, meaning somebody has updated this person. So now the person has a new age. Well, Backbone will announce these changes so that we can hook into them and update the DOM as we need to. I know that sounds complicated, so let's continue on with what we were doing in the previous lesson. Let's reproduce this. Well, rather than assigning it like so, instead, we're going to set a defaults object. And this will mean when anyone creates a new instance of person, regardless of whether they have set these properties, let's set some defaults. So in this case, what would be the default name? Well, it could be blank, or why don't we set it to John Doe, just so we have something to work with. And the default age, well, his age should be 30. And finally, default occupation will be worker. Let's try that again now. Once again, we'll create a new person. Now I'm going to run person, and if I open it up, where the heck are those properties? Well, they're going to be stored within the attributes. So notice we have age is 30, name is John Doe, and occupation is worker. So let's see, how could we access it? Can we still do person.age? No, not quite. Let's see, person.name. None of that's working. What we need to do is use a helper method. So I would say person.getName and person.getAge. Now the reason why we're doing it this way is so that Backbone at all times is keeping track of our data. And that's going to be really important, as you'll find. We need to constantly be monitoring this data to determine if it's been deleted or updated, or perhaps a new model has been added to a collection. That's the whole idea. Backbone's going to be watching all of this. So the API has to be a little bit different, and we'll go into that more shortly. What about if we want to put this person to work, as we did right here? Well, rather than extending the prototype, now I can just add it as a method within backbone.model.extend. So we will say work. And now once again, we're going to return this.getName is working. All right, let's try it again. Create a new person. Now I will say person.work, and now we get John Doe is working. So now if we come back, you'll see maybe it's a couple lines or so more, but we have considerably more flexibility than we did before. And now we're at a point we can delete all of this because we've reproduced it as a Backbone model. Now before we finish up with this lesson, let's take a look at something. If I do person.getName, notice that it does use the default. But what if we want to override that? Well, I'm going to hit Command K to clear this, and we're going to create a new person, but this time we're going to pass in some overrides. So this time the name will be myself, and the age will be 27, and I'm just going to leave the occupation to its default. So let's save that, and now if I run person, and we open this up, we can once again go into the attributes and notice that it did override the defaults. So these values will take effect unless you override that. So now we have age of 27, name of Jeffrey Way, and the default occupation of worker. Now another way that we can gain access to this object is to use the toJSON method. Person toJSON, and now notice that we get an object that contains our properties. And some of you might be thinking, well, that's not actually JSON, it's just a JavaScript object. Yes, that's true, but it should be good enough for what we need. Now the final thing that we will do in this lesson is set a property. So notice that we set a name and an age, but what if we want to update the occupation? Well, we can do that. I'll say person.set. Before we had get occupation, that's to get the value. But now we're going to say set occupation, and that value is going to be web developer. Now if we run it, let's do person.toJSON once again, and notice that we have now updated the occupation value. Now, you might see people do this, person.set, and they'll use an object, occupation, instructor. That will work as well. So if I run person.toJSON, you'll see we have updated that. It just depends on your needs. As a rule of thumb though, if you're only setting one property, you don't need to pass an object. But if you are going to be setting multiple attributes, then yes, go ahead and pass an object and set all of your properties. So in the next lesson, what I want you to think about is, what about when we set the age? Right now, I can say person.setAge to be -50. Well, we personally know that that's not a possibility, but our object does not. So now we have this person, Jeffrey Way, that has a negative age. So let's figure out, is there any way that we can set validation rules so that when we try to set a negative age, it will fail? And we'll do that in the next video.